Good evening and welcome to Tuesday night here on DJNTV. And you'll notice that the room is extra full tonight. That's right, Jay is with us. Oh, no, Jay's here all the time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Packed with extra goodness tonight.
Extra goodness into tonight's show. Tonight,
nuts and nougats and caramel.
Tonight,
I thought he was just here to talk to.
You're going to be learning, you're going to be experiencing, and you're going to be growing during our 1 hour segment this evening from a variety of different perspectives.
Sweet.
Wow.
So this is going to be pretty big time. This is big time. So we're excited. We've got some different things we want to talk about, but we started actually talking microphones, and let's just hit on this for just a minute here, guys, before we get into the show, because this was a question I've actually debated about having tonight, because there is still a lot of questions, and Brian did a video on this talking about the band frequencies that were available.
Oh, by the way, Ben just spoon-fed me all that information.
Yeah.
On Facebook Messenger.
I was just thinking, so that's why you were asking those questions. Yeah, well, no, you do such a great job with your videos, Brian. And anytime you ask me a question, I
appreciate it.
Yeah, you definitely reach an audience. You reach a group of people that your voice is the right voice, and so I think it's great that
for old people. Sorry,
I was going to say he's actually hipper and cooler than me. He's got a younger audience, right? So
and I'm older than you, so
I got to save this off. It's turning white. This is ridiculous.
Exactly. Santa Claus wants to buy a microphone, Ben. So speaking of microphones, the reason why I think this is coming up right now on some of the chat boards is people are thinking, okay, we've got a stimulus thing coming up. And it looks like events are coming up.
What mic can I get for $600?
What mic can I get for my money? And this is something, Jay, you were just you were asking questions about it. You're in a market for a microphone. What kind of things are you going to be looking for and such as you're going forward in your mic search?
Well, I work a venue where the requirement is 2 lavaliers for the ceremony. And it's been that way since I started there, and I'm of the mentality not to rock the boat and get into a big discussion about, one handheld on a stand, this is what they did before me, and I'm fine with that. So I'm going to eventually need to have 2 lavs by April, and I would like a solid wireless handheld. But a year or two ago, I would have just bought another Audio-Tech 3000. But now, the only time I'm using a wireless mic is for toasters, because I'm using a wired SM58 full-time for my mic.
People giving toast, not kitchen appliances, by the way.
Right, yes.
I was thinking Pop-Tart type toaster.
Yeah. Just got hungry.
I want to speak. I'm
not
going to hold that against them. I think it's only fair to include everyone, guys. So let's include them all.
Include them all.
But yeah, I just and the funny thing was talking to people. I don't care that your mic will go 700 feet line of sight on an empty football field with nothing around it for 200 miles. I want to know that my mic, and I'll be blunt, I need to know that my microphone with the back turned for the person toasting, with 70 people in 50-foot range, all weighing in excess of 200 pounds, that's the mic I need. I need that mic that's guaranteed to get through human flesh. 50 feet, much more than 400. I watch people do mic tests where they're like, I'm 350 feet away. Well, you're never going to be 350 feet away.
The point being is that if it's strong enough to do that, it's probably strong enough to get around Jimmy DePalma.
Well, and that's what I viewed it as. But this is where having an expert like Ben Stowe would come into play. Is that a realistic statement? Because something can go really far, does that mean that it has more strength at shorter distance? Like if you say this mic is rated to go 100 feet line of sight, well, if I'm only going 50, does it make it a stronger microphone at 50, or is the same signal involved?
At the end of the day, they're all FM radios, at least, most of the wireless mics that are available. And rather than saying it depends, I'll say it's complicated.
We've expanded our
yeah, I'm trying to,
wow.
turn over new show, new leaf,
Yeah.
There we go.
So Ultimately, what it comes down to is the amount of power that we have is regulated. We pretty much top out at about 50 milliwatts for unlicensed mics. Radio waves don't propagate through human bodies very well. Basically we're giant walking bags of salt water, and that's obstructive to radio waves. We attenuate the signal. Indoors, that signal can bounce around off things from time to time, and it can find its way home. Outdoors, that's less of a thing. So there's a lot of factors involved. Signal to noise. How strong is the carrier signal versus the RF noise floor? So certainly having the ability to maneuver the spectrum efficiently is very important. Having a lot of tunable range. The power of the transmitter can be important, but you may say, well, why do some have two power settings, a high and a low? Well, because for the same reason that bouncing around indoors can be good, it can also be bad. We can have things like multipath. So sometimes less power is better. And so long and short of it, Jay, there's several microphones. And in fact, I was literally talking to somebody from Los Angeles earlier today, and there are several mic systems I would feel very comfortable using there, and there's not just one good choice. And in fact, you mentioned I would just buy another Audio-Technica 3000. Well, I certainly wouldn't buy another one of the Audio-Technica 3000 third generations, but their new fourth generation, and ironically, I have one on my desk here. It's fantastic. It's got switchable power, and it's, I think, 60 milliwatts. Has a great software management suite available for it, but it is not the only one. There's a lot of great mics. Sennheiser 300 series, fantastic. We talked a little bit before the show about Shure ULXD, QLXD. They're lower power at just 10 milliwatt, 20 milliwatt for ULXD, I believe, with a 1 milliwatt option for like a high density. But it propagates in the digital in a digital signal, so it's a little bit more resistant to noise. And anyway, the moral story: this could be an hour-long show in and of itself.
Sure.
I think the best answer I would give is to say that, knowing these factors, quite literally what you and I were talking about before we went live is exactly what our viewers should do. Let's you and me chat privately. Let's talk about your budget. Let's talk about your needs, and let's talk about the pros and cons, because, a good system is essential, but so is good deployment, good use, good antennas, good etiquette. All of those things go into it. If you said, Ben, I will spend any amount of money, but I have to have a guaranteed system that cannot ever drop out, no such system exists.
Right.
So we just need to mitigate those risks as best as possible. And having a good piece of gear is a very important part of the equation, but so is proper use.
Well, and I think especially COVID, I mean, I'm incredibly happy and proud this year to be booking at the rate I'm booking, but I can tell you 100% of the things I'm booking are outside. Mm-hmm. There are no walls, there are no ceilings. So I'm that much more concerned about frequencies. I'm that much more concerned about, even something like lighting. Well, I'm not bouncing it off a wall or a ceiling or a floor anymore. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, wow, I really should look at the wash effects to hex, because now maybe I could freeze them on amber and I could do this. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that from DJs this year. The ones that, are fortunate enough to be doing events, they're going to be outside. And that's a whole new list of issues that can come up.
Yeah, outdoors is particularly challenging for wireless, and especially for body packs. And real quick, so that we don't spend a lot of time on this topic, I'll go through a couple quick reasons. Number one, as we said, you don't have the ability to, bounce the signal back home, so to speak. It doesn't have anything to bounce off of. Number two, there's no structure or building to attenuate interfering signals. So other signals, particularly from, TV, even distant stations, are more of a concern because there's no building to when I say attenuate, I mean knock them down, reduce the level of. And number three, lavs are particularly troublesome because, as you said, where we wear them, we put them, low, and we put them on our belt, we put them often behind us. So we have to try to propagate that signal through a bunch of bodies. So yeah, all things that definitely raise my level of concern. And in fact, as I said to the gentleman I was talking to today, maybe run your handhelds on low power and your body packs on high power, in that particular scenario, but it depends.
And it's a learning experience. It's nice to know that the changes are going to be met with different equipment. And I guess, like you said, getting in touch with you and your staff, probably the best first start to figure out what's best for us.
Well, because thank you for that. I think we're pretty agnostic. We don't have any loyalties other than to you.
Yeah. No, you absolutely are only looking out for our best interest.
And
Exactly.
customers advocates.
I don't get a
Yeah.
toaster oven if I sell so many more of one brand or another. There's no kickbacks or spiffs or quotas or, there's none of that exists at the level we're at. We're doing
And
volume.
we miss those days, don't we?
I really do. I mean, even though some of that stuff was kind of cheesy, it was just about the getting it, like yay. But yeah, that stuff is long gone and it just doesn't exist anymore. And even so, that never motivated me. That was never, like, oh, I'm going to sell this inferior piece of gear over something I feel good about just because I might get a T-shirt. That never motivated me.
What about a hoodie?
I'd sell you
Right.
out.
I mean, come on.
If it was a Star Wars hoodie, what if it was a Star Wars hoodie?
I'd sell you both out for a Star Wars hoodie.
Yeah,
Right,
see?
right.
At least we know his price.
By the way, this EV glass, I didn't have to sell anything to get it. I just got it for free. So,
Mike is such a nice guy.
Sure you did.
Mike's awesome.
Mike didn't give it to me. I think, I don't know if Crystal did or anyway, it was at NAMM. So it was like years ago when ETX was released. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
no strings attached to the free glass.
I remember that year.
You earned that mug on the ETX, by the way.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
that. Jay just mentioned, actually, this was going to be kind of the midpoint of the show that we were going to talk about this topic, but he just brought us into this one, talking about outdoor events and lighting. Specifically, he mentioned maybe buying a wash light. And that's something, actually, I wanted to kind of get the opinion of the three of you, and I'm not even going to bother to start the official Jay timer on this one.
Oh, I heard rumors.
There's a
there would be
timer? Wait a minute.
timer
What's
in
this?
it.
We never have a timer on my show. What's the timer for?
Yeah, well, I'm not on your show. That's
see,
why.
Jay's-
I know I'm on your show. That's what I'm nervous. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a minute. what do I
That's
step
the
into?
official Jay
It's
timer.
it's a control. It's a control
Once you-
thing.
Once we get into that, but we're not going to. I don't want to do that one for this particular question. This was going to be kind of our midpoint break, but let's go to there because Jay mentioned outdoor events. He mentioned lighting, and that's something I would. What the question I wanted to ask or have each of you kind of respond is that if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I'm going to be doing outdoor events and I want to have some illumination," give kind of a thought. Each of you give, and Brian, I want to start with you.
No, don't start with me because I've got something I want to do now that you're talking about. this.
Okay,
I can
well,
set something up in a minute.
Okay, goodness gracious. Well, then he's going to go. He's going to do that.
Wow.
So, well, Ben, then we'll start with Ben, and we'll go to Jay, and then we'll bounce back to
We've
Brian.
been in the chill room too long, John. You see what happened?
Oh, man,
Brian's getting all aggressive.
I know. It's just really, this other side of him we've
Let
never
me make
seen.
sure I understand the question clearly.
I'll restate it. Basically, you've got someone who's there. DJ J comes up to you and says, "Hey Ben, I'm doing outdoor events. What would you recommend the kind of lighting that I should be looking at having for my outdoor events? What are some of the things that you would recommend them think about?"
Weddings.
Like a ceremony or a
Weddings.
dance?
It would be a wedding dance, wedding reception.
Well, I think by and large, most of the stuff you use indoors, can just be used outdoors. Dance floor illumination, a lot of your uplights, that sort of thing. Keep a careful eye on the weather, though. Of course, indoor fixtures aren't going to respond well to getting rained on. Neither are your guests either. But if you think that's a possibility, guests can get out of there a lot faster than you can get all your gear out of there. So, you might want to have an eye on things like IP rated, ingress protected, uplights, that sort of thing. I think outdoor is cool because you can do that with landscape. You can light up, plants and landscape features and that sort of thing. But also it's important to have some dance floor illumination. Oftentimes it's accomplished with things like bistro lights, but I think a combination of some entertainment light is important too. The last thing I'll say about lighting before I turn it over to the pros here is, it's artistic. I don't think there's wrongs here. For me, that's what's great about it is it's a blank canvas and you get to kind of create a visual thing that goes along with the auditory things that you're doing. And that's perhaps the best piece of advice I ever heard a touring lighting designer give anybody is it should look like it sounds and it should sound like it looks.
I get that.
Great way to put it.
Force be with you.
And also with you.
Yeah, we'll get back to him.
This is the way.
So Jay, what you've been putting some thought into this because of your outdoor events. What kind of thought process are you going through when you're thinking about the lighting fixtures you'll be using this summer?
And not to take too much away, but the majority of my events last year, and I only had, a scattering of events, are in the same locations they are this year. So they're locations that, as I said, are completely outside, or I'm in a gazebo. And I had great success using the Chauvet Wash Effects 2. What I would change and will change this year is I will go from just, letting them chase during dancing, because the one downside of those lights is you can't master slave them on sound active, but you can on control. I will get a lighting control this year before April so that I can control them. They're really a great floodlight. And when I'm outside, I look at things like, if I turn a floodlight on and there's a tree 30 feet above me, it looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
But if I use a moving head, that would look cool as well. Mm-hmm. I just think anytime you have a beam of light, you need to have some element that's interfering with it to show where it is.
Atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yes. So whether it's fog or there's a small fire going or whatever, lasers, movers, pretty much all the intelligent lighting, to me, it can be used quite artistically outside, maybe in a slow sweep. But for dancing, I've had great success with just simply having lights that more or less cover the dance floor, the people, and a bit above them. So I just saw that Chauvet has released a new Wash Effects 2 Hex.
Yep, Wash Effects Hex, yeah.
And the fact that I could flood amber maybe during a first dance and then put it on a chase pattern, that's pretty exciting to me, because I think if you had 4 of those lights, you have what is pretty much a blinding light show. I mean, they're very, very bright, and they're incredibly well priced. I mean, I'm not pitching them in that respect, but I used to use the American DJ Revo 3.
You're trying to get your toaster oven, aren't you?
Yeah,
Well,
he wants
no,
that.
I mean, because what's funny is the lights behind me, I have the new American DJ Element. I can't remember the last part of the name, but it's the new silver one that they just launched.
Sure.
And it's IP65, waterproof for outside use. And it's gorgeous. So
Water resistant.
Yeah, I was going to say water resistant, yeah.
Ben, all right. Fist bump.
Oh,
I got something tech right.
Yeah,
we all know that means.
You do great, Brian. You do
That means you can put it in a pool. We all know that's what they meant.
Give it a try. You know how that works out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plugged in no less.
Try the toaster while you're at it.
Chlorine and batteries goes great together, by the way.
I think whenever it's possible for you to do less and to make something look more, you're outside. Don't try to take away from the elements that are there. Don't try to outdo a bush or a tree or a rose. That's not your role in this. Your role is to enhance what's going on. I think you should come and go from it and leave it the way it is. And if you want to throw light in there when people are dancing faster, by all means. I mean, if somebody gave me 2 vertigos, would I use them at a wedding outside? Sure, and I'd probably point one down and one up and let it catch whatever it catches.
Is there
so
a
I
particular
agree with
reason you
Ben.
didn't use the clock for Jay on this one?
I think I was under 4.
We haven't started yet. We're
Oh, okay.
this is the pre-show.
trial.
Okay. Okay.
Or
You're
actually,
up.
this was
good.
actually going to be the middle of the show. This was going to be the intermission time. So
Oh,
so we got the pre-show out of the way. Now we're getting the intermission out of the way, so we can go with.
We're our own intermission.
So
You know what, guys? I'm so sorry. Let me just turn the air conditioner off because it's now dropped a little below 70 degrees out here. So I just think I'm
whatever
so sorry,
will you
Brian.
do?
You're stuck in the snow? Oh, gosh, Brian, I'm so sorry. I forgot you.
We don't have very much
Lake effect
snow here. And you know what's crazy to me? I've got friends in Dallas and Oklahoma that are sending me
They have
screenshots.
more snow.
They have more snow than we do, and they're -6, -7. I mean, we had -31 today, and we go, man, that's a little chilly, but we're totally equipped for that.
they're not.
They're not.
This is a real crisis. I mean,
Yeah. No, it's bad.
I'm tempted to
they're in
kind of
bad
make
shape.
fun of my friends, but now I'm hearing they don't have power, they don't have
Oh,
water.
no. People
they
are
got it
dying
rough.
sitting in their car
They
in the
got it rough.
garage
Yeah.
because they're not aware of the carbon, issue.
It's a tragedy. So,
Yeah.
friends down south, please, if you need
Yeah.
advice on how to deal with this, well, first of all, you'll figure out why Wisconsin, Minnesota, and North Dakota lead the nation in drinking. But anyway, seriously, please be safe.
Doing my best to make California join that. I'm trying hard.
California's got its own problems, brothers.
No, this is true.
well, I took a minute to set up on my thing, and first, before I do that, I want to say Ben's absolutely right. Now, the science, he's like Ben Stowe, the science guy, when it comes to this stuff. He understands this stuff better than any of us ever will, and I can only hope to be able to maybe kind of interpret it in my brain so I kind of comprehend it.
Yeah, but
I
see,
trust
Brian,
the
you're
guy.
good. You're good looking, so I have to be smart.
You're very good looking, Ben.
I'm not good looking. Come on, that's why I have to know.
You're a very good looking guy. So, and the older you get, the more distinguished you look, and the beard is rocking. So,
Yes,
Don, do you want to
Anyway,
take off and get a drink?
I
I'm
was
sure
gonna
we
say,
can-
unlike-
You know what? That just sealed the deal. I'm coming to Midwest DJs so I can have a date with Brian. So
Please.
There we go.
Well, I know all the spots.
He does.
But Ben is, there are certain things that have to be certain ways when it comes to things like audio. When it comes to things like lighting, Ben's absolutely right. This is more of an artistic interpretation. There's not really a right and wrong. You're just creating art. And I think that's kind of what I like about lighting, is that there are no real rules. But I think that as you get more involved in lighting design and have more access to the tools to do lighting design, you come up with your own set of rules and your own style of lighting. So one of the things that I like to do is not blind anybody with my lights.
right.
I think that's bad. Now, on the other hand, there is a light, Ben's very familiar with it, called a blinder, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So it's not a rule, it's just an artistic interpretation.
Audience abusers.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you want to do that.
By the way, I have to tell you, I have to stick this in there because you said that. So, first gig we've had in a long time tonight was actually a photo shoot for some cellular hardware technology or high-speed bandwidth. Anyway, it's for an ad agency hired us to come basically set up a stage in a garage. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but the idea is that the service from this device is so good, the data is so good that when you listen to music, it's like the concert is in your garage. So anyway, we set up a stage, we had a band in the garage, and it was very cool. But we brought in the lights that we have, which are professional stage lights, and we had them operating at like 1 to 5% output because they were just pow. They're like, wow. I mean, the photographers were happy that we were able to accommodate.
Illuminate things.
When we got done with the photo shoot, they said, okay, let's do them at 100%. One time, we just want to see. And we're like, it's going to kick you right in the face.
Yeah,
That's what we use them for at concerts. We're like, how do you like that? Here's another pow.
It's got juice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I had to interject that.
No, it's all good. But the other thing that was I think really insightful was what Jay said when he had mentioned that when you're doing something outdoors, you need something to bounce the light off of. He talked about atmosphere. He talked about just things like a wall. If you do not have a ceiling because you're outside and you don't have anywhere to bounce light off of, if you're in the middle of, I don't know, a cornfield with no corn to light up, what are you going to do? Well, you can always try to find a tree or something. That's an option. You can always watch a crowd from above. That's an option. The one that I like, and I had to look up what it was called because I forgot. These are coin tubes from Ape. The cool thing about these, I got them on a remote. They look like a lightsaber, so it's totally.
They had you at lightsaber.
So
Yeah.
it's actually, this thing is like almost, I don't know. I think it's 3 meters tall, maybe
9
2.
feet tall.
Yeah,
a
it's gotta
meter
be
and a
2.
half. I don't know. No.
Like 9. That's like
3
9
meters would be 9
No,
feet.
you're right. I'm sorry. So let's say it's like a little under 7 feet tall. Let's just say
That's
that, 'cause I
still
don't know
pretty
how-
tall.
That's 2
It
meters.
is. I mean, look here. I'll show you.
2.56.
I'll show you. So
But if you had 2 on each side of you, that is
Yeah.
tall.
yeah. Now this out, and you can see me next to it. Okay, and I'm like, 6 feet tall. So it's got some.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So it's like a 7 foot tall piece.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is it operates. Hold on one second.
Can you lay it on its side?
No, hold on a minute.
Can you duel with it? Like a
I'm
take it
saying like
apart?
on a 6-foot
Look,
table.
okay, check this out. It operates off of a single Ape coin.
Wow.
Okay? This is a USB powered light.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
pretty
it's-
impressive.
It's a tri-LED, but it's got color macros and stuff. It does the music mode thing, which is a cool name I made up for the company. Thank you. That is kind of an interesting sound active option that is unpredictable. So if I put it on that, and I kind of make some noise around it, or maybe put my foot here, it does flash.
So is that a coin in a tube?
Yes, it's a coin in a tube.
Ah.
And the tube, here, check this out. And I'm just saying, like, if you do not have anything to reflect light off of, this is kind of a neat option.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
So here, let me just, I'm lipping around here and I'm doing this kind of impromptu. I'm going to take off music mode and show you that it comes in two pieces. It's come apart like that, okay?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you can use just one if you want, but that's a little short. I got the extensions on them, so it's two. The top is aluminum, so it reflects the light that's shooting up back down, which is what creates, the effect. And essentially, yeah, all you have are two of these tubes with a base and one of these little coins, which I think are like, I don't know, $70 a piece or less. So it's kind of a cool way to go. Like if you don't have anything to reflect light off of,
Yeah.
you can do something like this, one on either side, and at least give somebody in the audience a visual to look at.
I'm thinking you had one or two on each side of you and one across the table in front of you. That'd be a light show.
I did.
I mean, it would totally.
I did like 2 whole gigs, 3 gigs last summer because of the obvious, and I did use the tubes at one. I put one on each side of the booth. It really looked cool.
Yeah.
And then I wore them to my booth like I normally would with something. I don't remember what I used, like a stick, I think. And I had it all synced up because it was all ape. And
Yeah.
it would all worked well together. That's all it was. And it was a cool little show. If you don't have anything to reflect light off of, it's an interesting option. Thought I'd share it. So
Yeah, that would be a
You know,
neat idea.
And Brian and I have had this talk, and very quickly, one of the greatest light shows I ever saw was back in the late 90s. A DJ that was one of the guys that got me into DJing had hooked up 4 American DJ sparklers. And he had put 2 of them pointed back at the DJ booth and 2 of them on the ceiling pointed forward. And he had spent the time to angle them in such a way that when he turned them on and had them do, which is really nothing more than just a white light with a little fog, it looked like 4 tunnels.
the green lightsaber is the good guy, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's Luke.
Okay, that's okay. There you go.
Yeah, red's the bad one, I think.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it
yeah,
was it was amazing, and it taught me early on in the game. If you take any light at all, if you use it in a way that nobody has ever seen, it's artistic. I mean, it's I don't care if you have $12,000 movers on either side of you. If you don't know what you're doing with them, they look like crap. But if you have a couple of medium to lower price point lights, and you do something cool with it, I'll give Brian the credit. Brian turned me on years ago. I took my Revo 3 at a wedding, put it behind me on the floor, pointed up at a white wall, and the whole wedding, I had other lights in front. That Revo 3 just did its patterns against a white wall behind me. It looked amazing. People were like, what is that? Because they just saw a white wall and then all this color splashed everywhere. So I think, again, talking with Ben and his people, it's a great way to find out, what's the average size of the venue? Are they backyards? Is it a actual wedding venue? Can we go online and take a look at it? Wow, you know what? You know what would look cool in this? 4 of these lights. You could put one on either side and control them this way, and you're done. Because so many of them now have a small IR controller, and again,
Yeah,
I don't know which one does or
This is
doesn't.
really a cool way to go.
Yeah, no, I think I was blown away last year, literally a year ago this month when we started the chill room. We did the photo booth expo. I was blown away at how good the ape lights were. I absolutely was.
Well, I mean, I really, don't talk to those folks anymore or anything else, but it's still a cool product. It's it's the simplest.
Do you
thing.
need lighting? Call 1-800-APE-LIGHTS right now for the next 10 minutes.
I don't
Enjoy
know
a new
anything about them. I don't know what they do. I don't know. I know nothing about what's going on there right now because the plague. But then things happen. But yeah, I still think it's a neat solution. But to your point, Jay, about lighting, and I'll shut up about it after this, and John can do whatever he wants. But
John's still here?
I think it's one of those things. It's like anything else. It's not the tools you have, it's how you use the tools in front of you. And if you use them responsibly and in a smart way and kind of understand some fundamentals about, what works, what doesn't, what's painful, what isn't, what's the pleasure pain threshold on this, you want to make it so it's not confusing. You want to make it so it's not, like a Michael Bay film, and somebody's wedding reception. You want something calming and cool, something you can focus
Right.
on, and not something just like a Transformer movie that's outrageous and you can't tell what's going on. It's just chaotic. That's not the mood you want. So
No.
it's not what fixtures you use; it's how you use them. So
And things have changed real quick. And John, and Ben, you'll appreciate this. Brian years ago was kind enough to me when he said, "Hey, I just got these lights. They're like a bar. They were like the Freedom bars, but they were like the 3 or 4 foot ones." And I said, "No, you know what would look amazing, Brian, if you were to put an O clamp and put them in front of the speaker stand so they were pointed at the audience for dancing. I'm telling you, you can't miss." This was by far the most WKRP, I swear I thought turkeys could fly moment. So Brian does it at his wedding that night, and he's shooting a vlog, and he's behind the audience going, "So Jay told me to do this, and I got to be honest, it's hurting people's eyes."
Oh, they were giving me the dirtiest
putting hands
look.
up.
I think we did the same thing with those lights when we had those.
You never know until you try.
No, that was it. He's like, "Jay, I got to be honest. I'm going to have to say this is a no."
See, Ben's the guy who would analyze that first. He would say, "Well, and he would put all the pieces together, look at the puzzle on paper, and say,
Nope.
I'm the kind of guy who's like, you know what? Let's just try it. Let's try throwing a toaster in the bathtub. Let's see what happens."
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
That's after COVID. Really, what's the worst that could happen?
So
Okay,
Jay
well,
mentioned
just in case anybody's wondering, don't put a toaster in the bathtub.
I was gonna
You will die. All right, don't.
Ben is our PSA guy. Hey,
Don't
by the way,
try this at
everybody,
home.
what Jay and Brian said about electricity and water, that's really bad.
Yeah,
bad.
they shouldn't mix,
It's
especially
really
especially if
bad.
the toaster's plugged in. So
Jay mentioned using trees as an atmospheric type of effect. Brian showed a tube. Ben, let's hit on this for just a second because I think it's a topic that it kind of is a natural progression. We're outdoors and we want to do something. Will some of those things like foggers, hazers, are there things out there that people could use outdoors to create that atmospheric type of a situation?
Before Ben answers that, I was thinking last night I was going to bring like some kind of a beam in the snowstorm and show how you can
That
see
would've
the
looked
beam
cool.
in the snowstorm.
that would be very
Because
cool.
there's atmosphere in the air.
Yeah. Or a laser.
Because it would take that. Well, I live by an airport. I don't want to get in trouble. But
No.
I was thinking about like a...
Where's Brian? He's been arrested again. Laser airport.
He's on the
Last
terrorist
time he
watch
threw a
list.
toaster in he threw a toaster in a lake and that got him in.
He's calling for bail money. I'm like, new phone. Who this? All
Yeah.
right, sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, everybody, it's me, BSR. I'm showing the way I go fishing. There they are.
So, excuse me. If you don't have a snowstorm handy, what else could you do? Yeah, John, you can use atmospherics outside, but with limited effectiveness because any air movement at all and your fog is gone, right? So
Right.
that's a big challenge for us when we do outside shows. We try to put sidewalls on stages and pump a ton of fog in there if we can, and hopefully some of it hangs around. But in an open air environment, that's much harder even. So with limited success. The nice thing about using I think it was Jay that said something to interrupt the beam, which fog does. But as Jay said, so does a tree or a bush or a brick wall or anything like that. Anything that's got texture and depth. The nice thing about them is they're not going to blow away, probably.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Two really quick things. One is a lot of people, at least out here in SoCal, end up having the private residence weddings. And what I've always warned them about and run into myself is, okay, so what's the power like? What do you mean? Well, are you having a catering company come in? We are. Well, they're going to be plugging a coffee maker into this outlet and this and heaters. And before you know it, I'm going to turn everything on and fire up the lights and everything's just going to drop. So, one, be careful using atmospheric things because they tend, in my opinion, to draw more juice than, let's say, a standard LED light.
Well, a lot more. Yeah, by a factor of probably 20,
Right.
700,
But the one
1400
thing
watts.
none of us touched on, which I don't really do much because, again, the venues I work don't have that wall. But guys and gals out there in DJ land, this might be a great opportunity to go to NOFX Pro Gobos. Get a gobo for the bride and groom and post it outside somewhere, maybe as guests arrive, or on the driveway, or on the side of the building, or somewhere, a gobo might be not only a nice upsell for you, but it might be a great thing to add on to your package when you're doing outdoor events.
It's a good upsell. Yep.
Speaking of gobo, is there a gobo projector that is battery powered that could give you the ability to put it in unique positions like that to hit the side of the building and yet still be bright enough to be functional?
Well, those are two different questions.
There's small ones.
Yeah, there are battery powered ones. They're not very bright,
Okay.
you know, and part of the product there is the idea that you've got to preserve battery life. I think there are battery powered ones that are bright enough, though, you know, but I just don't want to give it a blank check and say yes. So yes, there are battery powered ones, and they have a variety of. There's a couple different ones with a limited, range of power. Here again, let's talk about what your expectations are, and engineering is always a series of trade-offs. So,
What if you're doing several though, Ben? What if you're doing? I'd like a gobo of hearts over here. I'd like a gobo of a big heart here. I'd like a gobo of stars over by the dance floor. I'd like a gobo of this. Maybe then the smaller battery-powered ones become a better option with a shorter throw and multiple use site.
yeah, like I said, engineering is a series of compromises. So it just depends on the throw distance, the ambient light. There's a lot of factors involved. For me to just say, though, that there's a battery powered one that, as John said, is bright enough, I think you have to quantify what is enough.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if you remember this, Jay. I was just thinking about what you were talking about before with outdoor atmosphere, John. When I was a little kid living in California, the big thing was you'd look
Earthquakes
up in the sky and you'd see searchlights crisscrossing.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I don't know
remember that.
Is it still like that, Jay? Do they still do it?
They'll do it for Hollywood movie premieres.
Okay, but they
They'll
used to
have
do it
them
a
down,
lot.
And it looks amazing.
You would get in the car and you would go to find the source.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. I haven't seen those in like at least 4 or 5 years. But that, like, even
that was
grand
the thing.
openings of restaurants would be
sometimes it would be a McDonald's. Sometimes it would be
they'd
a
have
car
the
dealership.
4 of them on one of those battery pulled up white cars.
Grand opening. It was on a trailer.
Lots of America, and they'd just be like crossing.
Well, and you could see them clearly in the sky, and I'm thinking to myself, all my life, up until, I guess, maybe the last 10, 15 years, I'm thinking to myself, those lights were so bright that you could
they
see
looked
them shooting through the air. And then it occurred to me, wait a minute, there was atmosphere out there. It was called smog.
Yes.
And that's why you could see it. It wouldn't work anywhere else except maybe Chicago or New York or freaking, Beijing, China. It's not going to work, in John's hometown.
Right.
Well, it depends on the time of year too. Right now, in fact, my wife was commenting last night on how clear and bright the stars were, and that's because it's 30 below. The air is very clear. That searchlight's going to be very ineffective. But in the summer when you got a lot of humidity, humidity is particulate basically.
Yeah.
You've got something to bounce off of the light. So.
Right. I was just an observation I was thinking about. So, stupid me when I first started doing lights, I'm thinking, well, you don't need all this smog to do this, or this fog or haze to do all this stuff. I never used it in the club back in the old days. It'll work fine. Then it occurs to me, wait a minute, you used to be able to smoke in clubs. That was enough atmosphere.
Yeah,
that's an atmospheric.
Best tasers in the world.
Yeah,
things are on forever.
Anyway,
and the challenges of being outside, and I'm sure John's going to bring this up, and if not, he is now. One of the big challenges when you are outside, especially in the summer, becomes the heat. And now it's how much electronics do you really want to be firing up? And is there a ramification of, I've got too much going, they're creating more heat, there's already too much ambient heat, and now you're stuck with that one.
I think the BTU output of those devices is probably low, particularly outdoors. The captive heat isn't going to be around much. And you certainly don't have a lot of emitted heat from LED fixtures, but that is a consideration. And absolutely, when we're looking at things indoors, particularly from the install standpoint, we do look at, BTU loads created because it has to be offset by additional ability to cool the building. You got racks of amplifiers, you're adding heat, which requires more air conditioning, and all these things are important in the conversation, about energy right now.
Well, and like I said, the majority of venues that I find out here, at least, are not venues. They're somebody's house, and they've put chairs and a nice backyard and a dance floor, and hey, it's a wedding venue, and you're running around looking at the 4 15-amp circuits that might be crisscrossing throughout the rest of the structure.
Everybody brought an Instapod or a crock pot or something. They're keeping
it's
Floppy
I've
Joes
had
warm in.
so many of those, and I've always said to people, I'm like, getting married at home is a beautiful thing, but I just want to give you the heads up. What's that? You will run into problems with power. No. My dad took care of that. He put a pool in. I'm like, babe, I don't care if he put a generator in. I'm just telling you. I guarantee if I go out there now and test the circuits, there is not one dedicated circuit out by the pool.
Yeah, my old man's a television repairman. He's got this ultimate set of tools.
Yeah, no, he's totally got one of those things that's red and black, and it's got a meter, and
houses just weren't built. Houses weren't built for that. The panels that are installed in houses just aren't.
No,
they just weren't.
All kidding aside, I set up for a wedding in the afternoon at someone's home, brand new building. Get all done. Go down to the beach, do the ceremony, with a battery pack and a DAS powered speaker, a mic, and a mixer, with like a CD player. Then go back to the house, turn everything on. And it was back in the days of an amplifier, Precedent AB900. Everything's going good. I turn on the lights, and everything just sucked down. And I'm looking around like, why did it get quiet? And I couldn't figure it out. I ended up having to unplug everything and plug it into the neighbor's kitchen by their sink because they guaranteed it was a dedicated circuit. Because in the interim, they brought in coffee makers and
everything else.
Whatever.
I'll say this as somebody who's done my share of outdoor events. Ben's done more than all of us. But
I don't know about that.
Well, you do concerts and stuff, and they're not on site all the time.
But we don't have power.
But they're planning on it.
We have generators the size of trucks, so we're not too worried about it.
I was going to go a different direction with this. When we're talking about bringing our equipment outdoors, there are elements that you should probably be aware of that could be a problem for you. Not only may you have power issues, but you also could definitely have condensation issues. Yeah. And that could be even a really humid day. That doesn't necessarily have to be rain on your stuff. It could be the fact that your stuff is cooler than the air around it, which sucks in condensation. Right? Is that how it works? Or is it the other way around? Your stuff's warmer than the air, and it takes in condensation.
Well, if you have,
what's he, meteorologist now too? For God's
sake,
but it happens. Everything.
I'm trying to understand
the Weather Channel.
Lake
effects. How the hell did we get over to this? Damn, he knows everything.
It's more of an issue if you're bringing something cold into a warm, moist.
There you go.
Like something we experience when we bring our gear in from a trailer. You and I, those of us who live in the climates, into a warm, moist, atmosphere. By the way, I just want to share this with you guys. You get a good laugh. I was just talking about how great it is having the generators we do, and I want to say that that's not always as great as it's cracked up to be. So here's a picture from a less than happy me.
Yeah, you don't look happy there.
Yeah, this is one of the 2 generators we have of this size on site.
Mm-hmm.
And without getting in a long and lengthy story, this produces enough power to power a neighborhood.
Nice.
A pretty good sized neighborhood. However, this generator, which produces a very nice, smooth 120/208 3-phase power, for some reason could not charge its own internal 12-volt battery, which runs the computer and the regulators and everything for the diesel engine and all that. So it shut down.
I see jumper cables.
Yeah. So you can imagine how excited we were when this shut down in the middle of a giant festival. Well, it wasn't giant, it was big. Anyway, we had to, and we had one band who was the headliner who didn't want to switch generators because they had sound checked on this one. We're like, you gotta be kidding me. It's why we have a spare. Anyway, so we had to run these jumper cables to the festival site electrician's Suburban and run the truck for the next 4 hours to charge the 12-volt battery so this thing could put out enough power to run the neighborhood, basically. I mean, just even with generators, there's no free lunch. Like I said, you could see how thrilled I was to be called to the generator from the
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the only upside would be it was probably some crappy country band, so it wouldn't have mattered. But outside of that,
No, it was actually a pretty good band too.
The point I was trying to make was we think about things like, okay, we want to have coverage from rain, you know, we want to have protection from, you know, the elements, but remember, elements can be wind. That's when you get all kinds of noise in your microphones if you don't have good windscreens on them. But the number one killer that I've experienced is the sun.
heat. Yeah, all day.
Well, no, specifically the sun. The sun produces heat, but it's the sun. I think the sun is probably scarier than just a hot day, because
Well, that
equipment.
wedding, I had a wedding on September 5th. It was 116 degrees, and I had a MacBook Pro with a SATA drive shut off. And then I had this computer that I'm on right now, which is a solid state drive, shut off. And the only saving grace was I planned ahead and had a flash drive of ceremony, cocktail, and dinner music, and I used the XDJ XZ standalone, or I would have been completely screwed.
Wow.
And the next day, sadly, got to watch on Facebook as 2 or 3 DJs said, "Man, what a horror show. I owe a partial refund. I couldn't keep my gear going." And the downside becomes for us, Ben, and maybe you can touch on this real quick, depending upon. I'm so glad John's actually hanging out, because at this point he's probably like, "Screw these guys, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go fishing."
Maybe
Who could blame them? Yeah.
If this is even something that John wants you to touch on, but I spoke with my good friend Christian Benke, aka Pulse, who
Great
is
guy.
my tech nerd wizard, and said,
Love that guy.
"Help me on this. I have a computer that's getting too hot, so I don't want anything cold to touch it, because then I'll get moisture internally. That's wet, that's bad." He goes, "Right." I said, "But if I put a fan and I put something cold under it, at what point am I going to defeat the purpose?" I said, he goes, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I have an oscillating fan blowing on the XZ, because I'm trying to keep that cool so that doesn't, even though there's really no great electronics, I didn't want that to get any trouble." And to your point, Brian, earlier, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I used to run a small fan on my tables outside, because it would be 95 degrees at 5 and then 75 degrees at 8:30.
Sure.
And my fear was always the lasers and the CDJs would get moisture on them. So I would blow a fan across the surface just to keep a constant temperature. But what he said was, try to blow the cold air at the laptops. Outside of that, you're in trouble. And I ended up speaking with a DJ from Vegas, and he's like, "We got 95-degree days outside here in March. And we have several different ways we do it." And one of the interesting things you might like, Ben and John and Brian, he was the DJ at the rehab at Hard Rock for 5 years. I'm like, "Well, how did you keep it all together?" He goes, "They had an air conditioning unit installed with 2 blowers that were set up in front of the DJ booth, blowing at the laptop stand and at the gear. So if you moved like a foot, it was 112 degrees. If you stepped back
Yeah.
another foot, it was like 75.
Right.
And they just ran those things ad nauseum to keep everything cool, because that was the weak link in the chain, was your laptop. So again, I don't know if John wants to touch on that.
Well, the only point I was really trying to make was keep your stuff out of the sun.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Certainly don't. I mean, the sunlight is an X factor that you're already battling heat.
Right.
That thing. Those things get exponentially hot.
I'd love people in the chat, if they've had an incident where they've either had to combat direct sunlight or heat, what they've done to get around that. I'd love to see answers from different people, stuff that we could learn from and the obvious viewers could learn from as well.
I did this job last summer. It was an outdoor wedding ceremony. I told them we can't do it outside if it's raining, but it happens. It starts raining. They still insist on doing it outdoors. I said, "Okay, fine. I need a $2,500 deposit to do this. It's all battery powered, and I want to be able to replace this stuff if it gets ruined." They said,
Right.
"No problem." Great. I also need a tent. Fine. So they put a tent up. So they do this, and I have video of this. This is a real thing that happened. the tent's up. The clouds had passed, more are coming, and the wind is about 60 miles an hour. So I'm putting weights on the tent so the tent doesn't blow off of me.
It's like a 10 by 10 tent over you, or just a cover or pop up?
Probably about a 10 by 10 canopy tent. But I
Okay.
told them, hey, I said no, but if you put the deposit down, I'll do it. We worked it out. But I had to deal with a lot of elements that day. I had to deal with the wind. I had to deal with the sun. I had to deal with the condensation. It sucked. So
Right.
there are challenges with outdoor events. Power is just
Oh,
one.
completely.
Ben,
Hold on one second. John just hit me up. You going to Steak and Shake? Yeah, no, I'm good actually. I don't know about Brian and Ben, but I'm fine. You don't have to get me anything. Thanks.
Ben,
Oh, John's back.
So I have Brian. I have a picture that summarizes outdoor events. This is a picture from a festival many years ago.
I told you could have gone to Steak and Shake.
That picture there sort of summarizes outdoor events to me.
Yeah.
Which, if those who don't live in the Midwest and don't know what that sky means, means your day is about to get
That's
bad.
a supercell, is it not?
Yeah, it could be for like a half an hour. It could be for the rest of the weekend. You don't know.
Right.
This is under the roof of the
Oh
stage.
no!
It was so even under the roof of the stage.
Oh man, was melting it?
No, it was water.
Just water.
Oh, I thought it was melting.
No, it was
No.
water.
Actually, here, this is a video taken of a stage. Let me find this one real quick. Video taken of a stage from a tour bus. And this is my PA hanging in the air. So you can imagine how excited I was. Let's see. I don't know if you guys will get the computer sound.
Oh, yeah, no, we get that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's gonna need to be dried.
yeah, I might have to get a towel.
All you can do is just sit there and go, that's not good.
Oh, well.
You know,
Well,
the one
you know what?
thing, the one
It
thing
could be
that's on the
worse. It
video-
could be Cheap Trick in, what was it, Canada? Where the entire stage just came down.
Oh, yeah.
one?
Well, actually, so, funny you mentioned that. Here's a picture from another band at another festival. I've started collecting these.
Tell us the truth, though, Ben. Are these all country bands? Just tell the truth.
No, actually, none of these are country bands.
Oh, okay.
And this next band is actually a rock band. But
Oh, there we go.
but
What's the name of the band? Luke Bryan?
I can't.
Trace Atkins? No.
They're
Just
from
kidding.
Kansas. That's all I can tell you.
Oh, well.
I may or may not have
Oh,
worked
I know. Chicago.
They're from Chicago,
I've worked with
I
all.
thought they wored Chicago from Kansas.
Boston.
Right. So let me just show you this picture. We're not going to get into whose it is. But I've started collecting these things because, this is a topic that I, that is.
Do you want your stage to look like this?
Oh my gosh!
Oh.
This band was touring and they were playing at a festival that I was doing. And the night before they had been like in Iowa and the stage was hit by a tornado and destroyed their video wall.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. And they're guys that I've worked with many times. And I would call them friends. And it was, we felt bad for them, insurance hopefully will cover that, but thank God nobody was hurt. The bottom line, and let me see if I can find this picture. And John, I'm sorry, we're probably going off topic here, but
No. John loves it when we do this.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
yes, I do have
This is like a dog park that John brings us to, and he undoes the leashes.
By the way, if you're in the chat and you haven't liked this video yet, shame on you. Go like the video. There's 26 of you
So let me
watching at
show you
11
this.
likes. What's going on with that?
exactly what Brian said. This is at the front of house, booth for this festival, as you can see, and festivals are outdoors, right?
Yep.
And by the way, it was nice. We talk about power. You can see the panel here to the left and a panel down here. I was able to get them to build a booth and put in adequate power. I always thought that was like a major coup,
Wow.
So I'm like, oh no, put in power. Then they build a festival site. I'm like, come on, now don't be dinglings.
Don't
Here.
be cheap.
So this is a weather chart, which you can't really see that well here, but basically each of these represents an area, front of house, stage, backline, video, lighting. Everybody has a place on here. And then this is something that happens, wind speeds.
Yeah, what if?
And there's a column for the stage and roof right here. So, obviously, at certain wind speeds, the soft goods need to come off. At another, wind speed, the place needs to be evacuated because that stage can collapse. And we saw that in Indiana.
Yeah.
By the way, I would like to take credit for inventing this, but I didn't. And I got to give a plug to my friends at the ESA. But this has been done, and I'll be happy to share some of the information with you on how to prepare a weather preparedness chart. One of the things that I did do that I feel pretty good about is not only did we do that, but we also put it on the back of everybody's laminates. So the front has show laminate. The back has, like, this is somebody in lighting, which you can see they're wearing one of our Run DMX shirts. So that makes sense.
Sure.
So you can see here, this is what happens at lighting. Can you guys read the text?
wow.
Oh yeah.
Sure,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
we put emergency contacts at the bottom, and basically, you understand, here's what's happening, here's what you do. And, doggone it, it was smooth and efficient. And that was, we ran into some severe weather, and it's like clockwork,
Well, talking to you, Ben, is just the same as when I talked to the guys that did sound for Pioneer DJ, and I would say to them, hey, I'm doing a wedding for 150 people in a room. What do you think? And they're like, 4 10-inch tops, 2 18 subs. I'm like, what? They're like, no, you want to get sound and this. And I'm like, no, there's like 100 people in the room. Okay, 2 10-inch tops, 2 18. Like, and you get a different perspective. I spoke with Kevin Ragsdale, who runs KMR International, does all of our shows. When EDC had a bad windy year, probably 10 years ago, they then changed all of the dynamics going forward. And I remember him saying, yeah, no, there's a total equation to keep the trussing. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, we need these 2 cement blocks because you need X amount of strength for wind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, I never deal with this. He goes, you don't? I'm like, well, I only have 2 like 15-inch speakers 6 feet off the ground. He goes, yeah, but you should have a sense of what it is. Do you think as mobile DJs, is there a basic amount of information or knowledge that we should have that we don't have when it comes to working outside with different elements?
Well, I just wanted to share this with you before Ben even answers that question.
Oh my God, look who's here. John Young showed up.
I told you.
John, where you been?
I told you that I have a video of that windstorm when the clouds are rolling out and trying to do that wedding. What you don't see in the video, and I'm ashamed of myself for not getting this, although I would probably got in trouble for doing it.
You were playing Prince, Purple Rain.
What? No, it was a wedding. It was during a wedding ceremony. The officiant is marrying these people in a high wind. My windsock on the microphone was totally doing its job, but the one thing you didn't see was Blanca hanging onto the tent pole so they didn't blow away.
Oh,
Because she was
that's
like
so
just
cool.
hanging on these things. Because we put like, I think they were like maybe 30-pound weights on each leg. They came with the kit, but that wasn't enough.
Oh wow.
No.
Well, I mean, think about how powerful wind is. It moves ships, right? Yeah. So, I mean, wind is definitely a factor,
Is there a formula, like a mathematical formula, of if the wind is blowing at 30 miles an hour, you should have 40 pounds to keep this down? And if it's blowing,
It depends on how big the sail is, man.
But that's my point. But what I'm getting at, Brian, is there a general thing that we should be thinking about? Like, I got a wedding this Saturday and it's supposed to be 20 mile an hour winds, no big deal.
Figure it
Well,
out.
Jay, a 45-pound speaker 6 feet up on
Roofs blow off of buildings, dude.
right, they did.
I mean, they're not supposed to do that, but they do.
Right.
So there's no
Hurricane
Is there
clips.
some way to be prepared? Is there some way to say, well, to safeguard yourself, you want to consider for every foot above 4 feet in a 30 mile an hour wind, the intensity jumps this. You know how sometimes there's those physics things
just
of like
don't
mass
ask the architect
divided
of
by
the Target in
speed.
Kansas that got its roof blown off or whatever the last 20
There
years.
is, Jay, I'm not aware of what that formula would be because there's so many variables. Is the box, purely, rectangular? Is it trapezoidal? Is it, what's the
Right.
size of it versus the weight?
And I don't know that there is an answer, but it's like I just
think it'd be
wondered if there was some way to
exponentially difficult.
safeguard going forward as DJs when we're outside. I mean,
use common sense.
exactly. That's hopefully what we're all doing to begin with.
Use
But,
common sense and
you know.
know that things can go wrong. I think if you're
Right.
prepared for things, it makes them much better. Like I said, we had a plan and we executed the plan, and we had people monitoring lightning when it got within our threshold. We said, okay, everybody get away from the stage.
Right.
I think the biggest thing there is that everybody has to be a part of that plan. I was at another event, and I won't say what. I don't think that's important, and I don't want to relitigate the whole thing here. But
Garth Brooks.
we had 10,000 people outside, and
Air supply.
they had no cover. The stage was covered, but thunderstorms are rolling in, and we sort of ran into kind of the situation of what I understand happened at the Indiana State Fair at the Sugarland concert, where I'm saying, hey, we have these protocols and we have these thresholds, but we are one vendor out of a dozen involved in this process, and we're not in charge. We were just the sound company. They had a different company do the stage, and a different company do the light, and a different company do the video, and then they had yet a different company doing other things. And we were talking to each other. We were all getting along, but again, we answered to people up the food chain, and nobody really knew who could or would make the call. And as we increasingly got inside of, we like lightning, we say 8 miles. We're like, hey, that's the danger zone. Lightning can hit you from 8 miles away. We need to not be here. We're standing around a giant aluminum stage. It's a bad idea. And these 10,000 people that are standing out here, they need to be somewhere else. Well, first of all, they had nowhere else to send these people. They had nowhere for the people to go. That thought had not been given prior to the event. But second of all, they were like, well, it's 8 miles. It's well. And I said, finally it got to within the mile. The lightning was within a mile. It was literally on top of us at that point.
I'd be in my car driving away at that point.
Well, it just, it got down to where, the event promoters didn't want to send people away because they may not come back. And that would mean a loss of food and beverage sales. And everybody was thinking about the money. And I said,
it's always the money.
It is. Yeah. And I said, what is a wrongful death going to cost you?
Mm-hmm.
What is the price tag going to be when people said you knew there was a storm and you were advised that this is dangerous?
Because they will call you to get on the stand and say, did you know there was lightning? Well, at 8 miles, I did say maybe we should go.
I mean, there's going to be the emails between us and the text messages. And
there's a paper trail.
Exactly. It would, that's what I finally came down to. It's exactly what I told the event, the event coordinator who answered to the money. I said, I will not go on the stand and explain why I allowed people to die on my watch. I said, I'm shutting the sound down and I'm out. I said, if you want to keep the lights in the video going with no sound, I said, that's fine. I said, but I will not be party to this.
These two need to get a room, John.
Yeah, they're doing fine.
Well, and you know what? The light guy and the video guy, basically, to their credit, nobody was as brash as I am, but they were very quick to go, yeah, we're with him. Yep. NLFX is the only company that actually had a weather plan, but we like it and we agree. Like, this is bad. We're all anxious to get the hell out of here too. Like, this is not good. And she said, okay. So, she went to the owners and said, you know what? I'm making the call and I'm pulling the plug, and you know what happened? 90 minutes later, the place was packed and we were partying again and everybody was alive. Everybody had gone home for that night. This was like a 2-week long event. It's like, listen, there is nothing here that is worth putting people's lives at imminent risk. And when we've got, severe thunderstorms, tornado warnings, and lightning, just don't,
Take a minute and realize seeing Alabama that night is not worth it against your life.
What do you have against country bands, by the way?
I'm just saying. I'm seeing a trend.
Yeah, no, Jay, I told you.
This was an EDM show. I want you to know this was an EDM event. So
even better. Oh, great. So you're dealing with DJs. There's a level of stupidity on the EDM side that forget it. They're never leaving the stage.
Jay,
people that surf on top of the audience.
I told you a long time ago, Jay, if you want to trigger Ben, say something negative about air supply. Okay?
I haven't gone there yet. Gone there.
He's not going to get mad about country, but do not diss air supply.
I saw a little bit.
Flip out.
No. What I just saw was the tiger in the cage.
Or the flaming lips.
They're not mad, but they throw a paw.
Flaming lips. I'll go down
a paw.
Flaming lips.
Yeah.
Look, yes, I worked for Air Supply. Yes, they're great to work for. No, I'm not. I don't care if you want to say what you want to say, but
do you realize? That was a big hit from Flaming Lips.
No, it took me a second. I'm like, wait,
I just wanted to throw that out.
No, I was just thinking about, you were talking about like the DJs. Actually, the DJ that was on for that night was with the rest of us. He's like,
I'm sure.
As soon as they said, all right,
get me out of here.
That dude
guaranteed
gone.
money.
He was gone.
Oh, absolutely was.
He was not from he was not from where you have severe thunderstorms, and he was scared poopless.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm from Iowa, so I'd have probably been on the porch watching this thing anyway.
You would have been fine.
Well, but I didn't want to. I just didn't want people.
But you know what I mean? I've gone to 7 EDCs, and the heavy winds I've seen at probably 4 of the 7. I haven't. There was some rain, and you know what? For the most part, people are like, "I paid $500 to be here. I don't care."
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of a racetrack in the desert, and you're kind of hoping everything works out. And the last June one I did was the last June one they did, and they moved it to May because they realized, it was 122 degrees, and they stopped flying planes.
Yeah.
Because the flights couldn't take off, and the pilots were like, we're going to turn around because the setup for this is done as such. We do lift divided by air temperature times weight. And right now we're at somewhere about we won't take off until we get past the Vegas Strip. So we're not going to try.
Wow.
Like literally, it was 122 degrees. And
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that.
And I talked to a pilot afterwards. I was like, yeah, my buddy just texted me. I dropped him off at McCarran. An hour later, he texts me. He goes, I'm driving to LA. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, they won't fly us out of here. And a month later, I'm on one of those famous buses from, parking lot to the airport. And I said, excuse me, are you a pilot? He's like, yeah. I said, let me ask you something. Is there a formula that you determine how hot it is you can't fly? He goes, yeah, there's actually a mathematical formula, and you realize you don't have enough lift. I go, so 122? He goes, yeah, I wouldn't fly. I said, yeah, I was in Vegas last month, and they couldn't fly. He goes, yeah, no, that was a smart move. He goes, you may have taken off, but the gamble is you may not have.
Yeah, it shouldn't come down to May.
No, that's what he said. He goes, the smart thing to do would be not to try to take off. And the pilot is ultimately responsible for the flight.
Yeah, it has to be.
Just like you're ultimately responsible for the sound. You have every right to say to the promoter, guess what? These conditions don't work for us. I'm going to pull the plug.
It goes the other way. I'm just sharing this because everybody's getting this cold snap. To let our friends know in Texas and a lot of the countries having these sub-zero weather. It was minus 36, and they were doing an outdoor hockey event, and this was me. So I can fully appreciate how miserable it is. And
that's you?
That's me underneath.
Freaking ninja?
Yeah. Well, it's just trying to stay warm for the 10 minutes I have to be outside. It was
I thought
so
it was a
cold.
ninja.
Thank you. I always wanted to be one as a kid.
Well, now you have been.
By the way, they had to run like blow torches because the game was televised. It was like on Fox, or something. And anyway, they had to do blow torches because they couldn't you can see the glass is all fogged up.
Ah, very nice.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know
who was playing on that game. Like, was it Lady Antebellum versus who? How was that whole thing set up?
Thunderdome. It was hockey.
Oh, Thunderdome is even better.
Yeah,
it's actually they had this is a thing they move around the state of Minnesota, and here you can see the Minnesota Wild emblem, the Fox Sports emblem, and they move it around. They call it Hockey Day Minnesota, and they literally built this outdoor stadium in like a field. And you can see
awesome.
They put in bleachers and glass and a scoreboard. And by the way, it was so cold, the water in the Zamboni was freezing. So they tried to figure out how to get the Zamboni, after it filled up with water, how to get it there before the water inside of it froze. But anyway, it was mostly high school teams that played and then a couple college teams. But
they do this for pro teams, too. Like being from Boston, they have an outdoor Bruins game every year. I think they're almost doing it almost in every state now of professional hockey. They used to.
This is Bemidji State, which is our hometown Division I university, and this is against Michigan Tech, which is a Division I conference rival. So
nice.
that's who was playing in that game.
I mean, that's the way it used to be back outside. Oh my gosh, guys! All kidding aside, guess who's just joined us now? The man, the myth, the legend, John Young.
Well,
John, how are
so
you?
the moral of tonight's show is just use your
ready to
common
call
sense.
you, John. I just want to talk to you.
John's like, okay, everybody, thank you so much for attending.
So that's pretty much it for tonight's
one more
show.
picture I got to show you.
One more picture.
I'm going
John, go back to the lake. It's time to go fishing.
So we had outdoor video walls, and we had this Crestron video processor, which is routing video by fiber optic, because we have multiple video screens throughout. There's like this whole village for this thing, and we had video screens to throw the game on, and we had to create these temperature controlled boxes to keep our electronics warm enough. It wasn't a question of being too cold. It was a question of keeping them warm enough.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You lost me at fiber optics, but so anyway, you know, Ben, John, Brian,
He's back.
me,
He's back.
and John.
So
Yeah, John's got over 11 minutes. He's got to be like.
the moral again is use your common sense when you're outside and you're doing outdoor events.
Yeah, but
Be
it doesn't
cognizant of the weather, be cognizant of the situation, and be safe.
True. No, true.
Thank you guys for hanging out and chatting tonight. This was actually a bet earlier. Someone bet me that I could not misdirect you and such, and we could that basically that I could avoid the game the whole night. And I said,
you won.
I can do this. This isn't going to take much.
So do we all get toaster ovens?
So yes, everyone's
Yeah.
going to get a toaster oven. It has a picture of a bathtub on their sweatshirt. It'll be great.
I
I
was
get a
wondering-
distinct impression, guys. The email goes out tomorrow morning with, here's our new schedule. Every other week, there'll be just a headshot of me and then the three of you for an hour. And just do whatever you want.
I was wondering if you have any questions left over for another time.
Oh, I have a lot of questions. We haven't-
Like
We
30
didn't-
of them.
We didn't touch the closest were the two I wanted to talk about tonight. I wanted to talk about lighting and microphones a little bit, and those were the others. But yeah, I've got a whole list of things that will be for another day.
Well, and you know what the great thing, and hopefully Ben can join us because this has been awesome. But going forward, I mean, I don't know what's going on in your markets, but everything I have coming up is outdoors, and I have a wedding this Saturday. It's a very small wedding. It's at a church. It's outside. It's in the afternoon. The couple's already married. It's social distance, the whole 9 yards. But it begins this Saturday for me
Nice.
as far as outdoors and the challenges that I will run into. And that's the way it's going until at least November. Everything I
think
have
so.
is outdoors.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see here, as I'm hearing.
It's all going to be like that. I think new venues will pop up in your towns that weren't there a year ago, where people have realized I've got enough land and I've sculpted it in such a way that we could have a ceremony.
Don't forget to like the video if you haven't already.
Please do. And subscribe if you haven't, of course.
For
Smash.
Are
the
we on
subscribe
Twitch?
button.
Smash the subscribe button.
No, we're not on Twitch. Not Twitch. That's in every broadcast. So
I thought we were on
you guys
Twitch
can jump
also.
out to djntv.com/chill. The chill room will be open. There's some folks out there right now, and there will be more in just a bit.
We should try to get Ben to go to the chill room one night because that would be something we could advertise. Like, hey, everybody, we got Ben Stowe in the chill room.
You and
That
Ben
would
are
be
like War of the Gargantuas when it comes to monologuing. I don't know how that
I'm just
would
saying.
work.
No, because that would be a
monologuing.
night where I could just put up my picture and walk away and drink because, like, I wouldn't have anywhere to talk.
Like
No,
the rest of us
I'm
do?
looking at an opportunity to hang out and drink. Is Ben in the chill room? Oh shit, I'm going in. Just put up my photo and I'll be at the bar.
All right, everyone. Thank you much for hanging out with us tonight. Go out to the chill room and have a good time, and we'll catch you next week. Good night, everybody.